Okay, so I'm just gonna come right out and say it. If you happen to work at Blizzard's art department, you should take a little stroll over to the systems department or whatever department came up with all the garbage systems like conduits, anima grind, mod dailies, excessive time gating, domination sockets, and plenty of other things. You know, all of the garbage of this expansion, right? You go to that place, which I'm sure that it wasn't just one person. There was probably a collective group of people. I wouldn't be surprised if marketing was even involved, but you should just take a stroll over to wherever those people happen to work. And the first thing that you should do is you should go ahead and say something in the lines of, "Oh man, I have this back pain. I have just like a pain in my back, must be from carrying around all of this fucking dead weight." And then after you say this, I want you to pull down your pants. And as you pull down your pants, I want you to climb on top of one of the desks. Okay? And as you climb on top of one of those desks, I want you to drop the biggest deuce you can possibly imagine on top of that desk. And then you'll let everybody that was involved in these decisions know, like, hey, look, I produced the quality of your work. One quick bowel movement, and I produced the entirety of your contribution to this expansion. Is that not impressive? Oh, man. And while I was doing that, let's not forget, I carried all of your goddamn dead weight in this fucking game, and I've been doing it for years. And then you can go back to your desk and go back about your business, because I just feel like that's a message that needs to be sent. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so I've been playing World of Warcraft recently. I've told you guys that I was going to be starting a little bit ahead of the pre-patch. We've now hit the pre-patch. I've had a chance to play around with the talents, do all of that jazz, and throughout this time, I've been working at completing the different campaigns that are available to you, because I was just like, let's just see what they did throughout the rest of Shadowlands ever since I went away from the game, which was shortly after I finished Castle Nathria Normal, I think. Me and a group of friends, we beat Castle Nathria, and then I was, just grinding away at mod dailies and, doing other mind-numbing tasks that were essentially expected of you in order for you to keep up with the ridiculous power creep of the game. Tasks which basically burned me out completely and absolutely from the game, because all of the time that I was spending on those worthless tasks that were just designed to keep me engaged with the game was time that I could be spending better playing other video games or doing other things that are far more interesting than fucking mod dailies, So that was like one of the things that really burned me out. So anyways, I came back into the game and I started doing all of these campaigns, all the things that were introduced into the game since I went away. And I realized one thing. And this might be a little bit controversial, what I'm about to say, and a lot of people are probably going to be upset with me. One of the things that I realized is that, you know what? From a content perspective, and I'm not talking about like raiding or anything. I mean, I liked raiding Castle Nathria personally. I don't think it was a bad raid. The other raids, I haven't done them, so I can't really comment on them. The dungeons were like all right. It was just a shame that apparently there's only been one new dungeon added since the beginning of the game, which was a dungeon that I did the other day in Mythic Zero with a couple of friends. And is like all of this time and you added one new dungeon to the game. That's a little bit weird, but it's whatever. Not to mention that I don't like that dungeon one bit. I think that dungeon fucking sucks, but I'm talking about Tazavesh for anyone that's curious. I don't like it at all. Like I just went in there once, and from what I've seen of it so far, I'm like, I don't like this dungeon at all. It's slow. There's too much RP. There's like, whatever. Anyway, besides the point. As I was saying, so I've been doing the content. I've been doing the campaigns and all of this stuff. I've switched covenants to the covenant that I actually wanted to play, because I wanted to play Necrolarts, because I thought they were out of all of the options that were available, which, to be completely honest, out of the 4 options that were available to us, I didn't like a single one of them. I don't like Bastion because they're the goody two-shoes. All they care about is justice and whatever. Basically the paladin archetype faction. There's the vampire faction. I don't care for vampires and never did. Never really had any particular passion for that. I don't care about undeads either. And I definitely don't care about tree huggers. So I didn't like any of the choices. But looking throughout each of the zones and looking throughout, each Covenant's attitude, my natural alignment was the Necrolords. I was like, this looks like it'd be the cool Covenant, so this is the Covenant that I wanted to do. Unfortunately, I couldn't because I was playing a Paladin, and the best thing for Mythic Plus with Paladin was Bastion, so I was forced to play Bastion, which fucking sucked to begin with, but, it's whatever. So this time around, I was like, hey, let's just do Necrolords on my Warrior, and it's whatever. I don't care about whether or not it's powerful, even though I did look it up, and apparently it's like one of the most powerful covenants for warriors in Season 4, so, whatever. So I go in there and I do that campaign. Actually, no, I didn't do that campaign, because guess what? You don't have to do the campaigns in any kind of order, which I just, as someone who's been spending a lot of time playing 14, and yes, I will bring this up and I will talk about these things because I find them to be important. As someone who spent a significant amount of time playing 14, I kind of feel like it's important that there's a certain order to which things happen. But the game, basically kind of like, as a returning player, the game kind of just like pushes you to Zereth Mortis. Like they very quickly, it's like, oh, let's go to Korthia. And then you get to Korthia and like, okay, you've been here for about 5 seconds. It's time to take you on to the new zone, which is Zereth Mortis. Let's go. And I get to Zereth Mortis and I do the Zereth Mortis campaign and I see those cinematics, which, by the way, good work on the improving of the cinematics and all of that jazz, right? I thought that the new cinematic quality that they've implemented with in-game cutscenes is actually really good, and I think it's important to point that out. I already pointed this out in one of our podcasts, so good job with that. But so I do that campaign, and then I'm like, okay, so what do I do now? I think I get to a point where I'm supposed to do dailies, and I'm like, well, I don't want to go do dailies. Like, let's see the other campaign. So I start doing the other campaign. So it's basically like I'm experiencing everything in reverse. I'm now seeing events that I should have seen before. And here's the thing. I was aware that this is kind of how it worked. I was aware the game was kind of like pushing me in a certain direction to go to Zereth Mortis, to get caught up and to do all of these things. I was kind of aware of that, but I wonder how many players are actually aware of what the game is doing in terms of like pushing you off to the latest content super fast and just like ignoring everything else. Because then I went to do, my, the Covenant campaign, the Necrolords campaign. And so I was experiencing events to which the results I had already, I had already seen some of the results over in, what's the name of the campaign? In the Zereth Mortis campaign. And after that, I went and I started doing the Korthia campaign. It was mostly, at this point, I was just like, whatever, I'm just trying to scrounge up some gold or something so that when the expansion comes, I'm not going to be dirt poor or whatever. So I'm just going through these things. And so one of the things that I've noticed, for starters, the order in which you do things, because it has a narrative, it has like a narrative direction, you should kind of have to go through all of it. I understand why they don't do that, and to be honest, because it's Shadowlands and the story is shit anyways, doesn't really matter. It's whatever. But I still think that it would have been important for those things to be done in order, and the game should, at least in a certain way, communicate, hey, if you go do this now, there's going to be a lot of stuff that you're going to be missing out on, you're going to be missing context, and then when you go and you do the other campaigns, you're going to see that. But it's just weird experiencing things out of order is what I'm saying. But fundamentally, the conclusion that I've arrived at is that the actual content that is there, and again, I'm not talking about raids, I'm just talking about the content of the campaigns themselves, the quests and all of this. The actual content that is there is not that bad when experienced in the way that I experienced it. And that is to say, in patch like 9. I don't know which patch we're on, like 9.3, 9.28, whatever the hell. Now, in this patch, experiencing the content now, it's actually not that bad. It's not terrible content. Now, it is important to mention that, yes, the story is fundamentally shit, unapologetically shit overall, as far as I'm concerned. Like the whole, 5D, Giga Chad, chess plan, whatever, been playing 4D chess since I was born for thousands upon thousands of years and did all of these machinations that have led us to this exact point. Yeah, that's stupid. That's just bad writing overall. And there's plenty of examples of bad writing. But if we actually look into how many people, like if I was to ask in this video, And people feel free to answer me, like, how many people actually play this game for the story at this point? I think most people stopped playing World of Warcraft for the story back in Wrath of the Lich King, because technically speaking, that's kind of like when the story ended in a way. But I still think that it's important for new players that happen to come into the game to experience some of the events that take place and to have some kind of like narrative logic to the things that are happening. Because as someone who's played both World of Warcraft and other games, I'm aware that like if you come in into the middle of an expansion, you're going to be expected that it's going to be expected that you're not going to understand most of what the fuck is going on. But for a new player, they're not going to know this, and we've seen like examples of this with people that even came in from Final Fantasy XIV to try out the game, and he was just like, what the fuck is even going on? I forget his name. I'm going to try to, put like a link in one of these. You guys probably know who I'm talking about. Most people, we've seen reactions to those videos and stuff, and how it was very disheartening and this disjointed experience for a brand new player that's jumping into the game. I think that the brand new player experience to World of Warcraft is fundamentally bad at this point, and I don't know what they can do to improve it, because I mean, I do know what they could do to improve it, but it just is too much effort. I feel like they need to make a compilation of like World of Warcraft's best of, where a new player can experience like the best moments of each expansion and kind of like a summary of the story, and that could be like the MSQ for new players, so to speak. And I think that would be an important thing to do, but that is going to require a tremendous amount of effort that I'm not sure that Blizzard is willing to invest. But fundamentally, as I was saying, right, because we're talking about story, and story is not the driving force of most of the people that want to play World of Warcraft. They play it for either collecting things like minions, mounts, crafting, or they play it for Mythic Plus and dungeon runs or raiding, or a combination of those, or they play it for the PvP, or even a combination of any of the things that I just said. There's also people that pretty much just play every aspect of the game and whatever. But out of those people, most of them don't really care about story. There's some rare exceptions and whatnot. Mostly people care about the lore of the world. It's a familiar world that they've played in before. There's a lot of nostalgia when it comes to this game. So if you take the story away, like I was saying, the rest of the content, the campaigns that I've done, like, I'm not going to sit here and say that they weren't fun. It was fun. There were a couple of scenarios that were fun to do. Even if when it got to certain story moments, I'm like, whatever. Now Pelagos is going to become the Sergeant Butters or whatever it is that they call him. And he's now the Arbiter, and makes absolutely no friggin' sense considering that Pelagos, as someone who's played part of the Bastion campaign, the little bit that I've played, Pelagos was like the biggest failure of the Kyrians almost. And, all of a sudden he becomes the Arbiter. I'm sure that that's what they're trying to do. It's this big redemption story. He wasn't good at anything, so he became the best at everything. It just doesn't make any sense to me personally. Maybe someone who's played the entirety of the Bastion campaign has more context, and for them it makes sense. But I also wonder, what about the people who played the story of the other Covenants that might not even know who the fuck Pelagos is to begin with? I guess that Zereth Mortis campaign is supposed to introduce to you who Pelagos is, but still. But yeah, fundamentally, the actual scenarios that take place, the quests and that, it's not that bad. It's like, it's average World of Warcraft content, and some people will find that fun, some people won't. But the problem is, you're talking about when I experience the content, right? Which is now, at the end of the patch, when there's no time gating mechanics, there's nothing basically keeping me from continuing to experience the story, and I can just keep chugging along and consume the content at a rate that I'm, having fun with it. And what I get from all of this experience is that basically when I started playing the game, Shadowlands, at release, it was just a bunch of fucking boring bullshit that was stupid. Like the fact that you had to spend so much time in this zone, and I get it, the zone supposed to represent hell, and they limit the amount of time that you could spend there. It's almost as if Blizzard knew this zone's so fucking bad that we need to make sure we don't keep players in here for too long. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we keep them coming back every single day to do more dailies. It's just so asininely designed. And I've heard like similar thing from Cordia, that Korthia was also so like super poorly designed for people that were trying to enjoy the game. And all of those chores and all that bullshit that you had to do, that's fundamentally what poisoned the well. It's not even the content itself, because the content is not terrible. It's not particularly good when it comes to the Shadowlands, but it's not terrible. It's just what you put in to fill in the content that is fundamentally terrible, asinine, and doesn't respect the player's time. See, because you're at the end of the expansion, all of a sudden it's like this is when players feel that their time is most respected, because you log back into the game. There's fuck tons of content for you to do. You can just go do that content, have a fun time, maybe not have a fun time, depending on how much you enjoy the Shadowlands. For me, like I said, it was average. It's whatever, but it's not terrible, right? Again, depending on the activities that you do, I guess that maybe for PvP it might have been worse. I don't know. I don't do PvP, and I don't know what the raiding scene was like, but all of this, I'm going to give you guys a very distinct example. I actually liked Torghast. I thought Torghast was fun. You want to know what I didn't think was fun? Was for me to do one Torghast run, be rewarded I don't remember exactly how much soul ash you would get from a run, but let's say you'd get 1,000 soul ash from doing one run of Torghast, and then they would want you to do the exact same thing, and they wanted to give you 50 soul ash. And that would be the difference between you making your legendary, I don't know how many weeks it was, but let's say it was 4 weeks. That would be the difference in you making your legendary in 4 weeks or in 5 weeks. And it's this kind of asinine design that is spread throughout every single conceivable system in this expansion, throughout the duration of the expansion itself. And now that they've removed all those artificial time wasters, the expansion actually becomes somewhat palatable. Isn't that fucking impressive? All of these anti-player systems that you've put in, after you remove all of those, the expansion's not that bad, with the exception that, the story is complete dog shit, and a lot of the systems that are there, even without the time-wasting things, are fundamentally bad, like you having to ally yourself with a covenant that is going to dictate player power, when in reality it might not necessarily align with you from a thematic standpoint, because Blizzard promised, but we're going to balance it just right, it's going to be great. And obviously that was not the case at all. Some covenants were flat out not viable for certain specs. It's just a fact. Whether you believe that or not, that's going to be up to you, but it's just a fact. And there's that. There's, the conduits, which is also a piece of garbage. The amount of limitations we had as to when we could swap conduits, because right now you can just change conduits whenever the fuck you want. There's no limitations. Hell, you can swap covenants whenever the fuck you want. There's no limitations there either. And there were. When the game came out, there were all of these stupid limitations in place, all of this hubris that the players have told them, don't fucking do this. And they were like, no, we're going to do it and you're going to like it. So, in conclusion, Shadowlands was not a terrible expansion. It was terribly fucking managed. The content wasn't terrible. It was average or below average, depending on your standards. But it wasn't terrible. It was just very, very poorly utilized. Now, of course, we could also talk about the content drought, the massive content drought, however many months that shit was. But I mean, a lot of games had content droughts around that time. Some games even released a little bit unfinished. But yeah, it just pisses me off, and I'm curious to see if this is going to be the case for Dragonflight. If once again we're going to have an expansion that in reality is not that bad, but it is going to be piss poorly managed with all types of fucking time gating systems, all types of fucking, I mean, it seems like it's not going to have any of that, but I'll be real. I hear a lot of people just saying, oh, it's not going to have this, it's not going to have that. But at the same time, throughout Blizzard's messaging, the impression that I got was that reputations were going to be account-wide, and that's not the case. And they haven't really gone out of their way to really correct people's perception on that. It's like the rewards, supposedly, are going to be account-wide. It's just why do you insist on constantly fucking around with your player base? I'll never understand. But anyways, I'm just a little bit rambly at this point. I don't know what was the point of this video. It's just something that I kind of felt like talking about in regards to the Shadowland. Let me know how you feel about it. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong. Stay safe. Peace out.